Hey folks, it's Shane from Performance EV. Today we're back working inside the Porsche. Hey folks, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us. So for those of you new to this channel, this is my little spot on YouTube where I put electric motors into fun and interesting cars. And this is my 1998 Porsche 996, which is currently getting a Nissan Leaf drive unit put into it. Now, it's a while since I've done any work on the inside because I'd gotten everything I needed done to be able to test the motor sorted quite a while ago, and I got a few videos up on that. So I had things like this little panel put in place that allowed me to control what signals went to the inverter to switch it on, to put it into run mode, to make it move forward and reverse. And since then I've kind of slowly gone through and upgraded things as necessary. So I moved the kind of switching the inverter on and the start signal from over here into the ignition key, so that controls that side of things, which is great. But I was still controlling the forward and reverse from this panel. So I've gone and bought something from one of the EV conversion companies here in the UK, which I think is a pretty slick piece of kit, and we're going to try and make that fit in a neat manner into the car here. So yeah, let's get to it. So those of you who've been following this channel for a while will recognize this little panel that I was using for earlier testing. At the very start, basically all the power went through here, and then I selected direction. I think it was using this little rotary knob, and run and that sort of thing were various switches. Most of those functions over the left side of the column have now been moved to the switch, the ignition switch, so that's great. We can basically turn on the inverter just by turning the key in the car. It's more OEM experience, but at the moment I'm still selecting the direction using a combination of kind of switches and the rotary knob. I want to move away from that. I want to do something that's actually on the center console rather than blocking up a cubby here. So for that we're gonna do something different. I've already started to disassemble the setup here. So I've taken the gear selector knob off, and I've already initially disconnected this. So what I'm planning to do is to actually put a better digital gear selector in this space here. So I'm going to take the entire piece out and then have the gear knob basically on this piece here. So let me show you what we're going to use. So we're going to take this with me because I'm going to have to customize this. So here's the piece we're going to fit. This is a gear selector that was designed by Zero EV here in the UK. Put a link to it below. I paid retail for this. This isn't sponsored or anything, but I thought it was pretty cool, pretty simple. Basically you've got a series of 12 volt and signal inputs and outputs here, and then it's simply neutral, reverse, drive. Now the plan is to basically fit it in here, and actually the hole isn't that far off. A pretty much perfect fit. So I'll need to shave this out a bit, and then what we're going to do is fill in the rest of it, make it all nice and neat, and then either paint it or maybe cover it with leather or something like that. But yeah, that's what we're doing. So let's get to it. All right, here we go. So we've got our trim panel. We've just shaved out, just with a blade, a little few sections here to create a little bit more space for the gear selector there to fit. So that's looking good now. Obviously we've got a lot of space here. We want to fill in along here and just put a little bit more filler in here just to make it bit more secure when we slot that in. So yeah, let's get this filled in and then we'll go from there. So we've done quite a few rounds of kind of filling and sanding back, and we've now got a decent layer of filler, which is more or less the same shape. There's a couple of little areas where I want to adjust it slightly, a couple of things I want to fill in, and then I just need to trial fit the gear selector, and there's a little gap at the front and back that I just want to even out within this circle, and then just blend from the circle out into the rest of the piece. So there's a little bit more filling to do, and then we should be sand it back one last time, and then we can figure out how we're going to finish it. Alright, now we just need to let this cure, and then we'll send it back again. Hopefully this area should be nice and flat, and then there's enough there that we can just blend it into the rest of the design. Alright, so here's our little gear selector from Zero EV. As I mentioned earlier, this is not an advertisement or anything. I did pay retail for this. I just really like the look of it. I think they've done a pretty good job. So I bought it from their website, and yeah, looking at it, it's actually a nicely designed little piece of kit. We've got choices, center's neutral, and then you can go to reverse or drive for forward or reverse. You've got your connections at the back, and they provide a little block connector and all the pins you need, so you just need to crimp those onto the relevant wires and plug it in. Basically there's two circuits in here. So two sets of outputs, each for reverse and drive. So you've got common ground, you've got 12 volts coming in to give it power and illumination. I'll show you that in a minute. And then that 12 volts can be the output to reverse or drive, which works for me because my inverter needs a 12 volt input for those. If you're using some sort of system that needs a different input, like I don't know, 5 volts, 3.3 volts, 20 volts, whatever, you can actually wire that into the other circuit, and you'll get then the output at whatever voltage you put in. So it's yeah, it's got a good redundancy there. So I'll be able to do this with just, I think, 4 wires, ground, live, and then reverse output and drive output, which is pretty cool. So it's basically these 4 pins to the right of this that are the ones we're interested in. So we've got positive going to this one here, negative going to right beside it, and then the one up above is the drive signal, and the one to the left is the reverse. And basically if we wire this up to a conveniently placed battery, we get some pretty lights, and we get an illumination of what we're in. So I've done another few rounds of sanding and filing and filling and sanding and filing, and it's pretty much there. I've got a few little, I just want to just improve the profile of a couple of things, but just to show you what this will look like, is we'll have our selector going in there. That's nice and flush. And then if we, just for the look, get this set up. There we go, we've got our gear selector. Now obviously this isn't the prettiest, so the plan is to cover it in some leather. hopefully that'll give it a nice look. It'll cover a multitude of sins, and yeah, it's not a perfect match for what's in the car. It's actually probably closer to some of the vinyl bits that I've ended up with, because I was cheap and bought bits from Boxsters. But yeah, it'll do for now, and yeah, get us up and running. So basically I'll just use some spray adhesive, spray it on both sides, put that onto there, glue it down, and then once that's dried enough, I'll just kind of neaten it up around the edges. But yeah, so I'm going to go outside and do that now. Alright, so we've cleaned this well with wax and grease remover. We've got our leather here, and we've got some spray adhesive, contact spray adhesive, so we need to just spray onto both sides, give it a second, and then just hold it together. Alright, so now that we've got our new trim piece gear shifter made up, we need to be able to fit it. So obviously there's something right in the middle of the way at the moment. That's our gear selector. So we need to kind of pull all this stuff out of the way. So I've loosened most of the bolts. If you're really interested in how that happens, I've got videos on how I did the entire dash a couple of years ago. But yeah, we've got our little trim panel, which I'm going to try and slot back through here once I pull that out. We've got our climate control, which I'll pull out, and then we'll see if we can get this out of the way and disconnect the gear selector. Alright, we've got our gear selector out. Put that to one side, play with it later. Double checked my wires, so I think I've got everything. Just reach in here for anyone I've missed. So we've got a 12 volt which is connected to the ignition. We've run a neutral up to a ground point behind the dash, and then I just need to dig out my forward and reverse. So there we have it. We have our gear selector in place with a nice little trim panel for it. So it's looking, yeah, it's looking pretty decent, I think. A few more panels to go on around it to really button up the center console. Might need to just trim a couple of little things along here to really get this to blend in nicely, but that can wait for another day. But yeah, this should give me the level of control I need. No strange buttons or weird wiring or anything. That is all very neat and efficient, and yeah, very much, I think it's pretty close to in keeping with the rest of the car. Might do a little bit of work on the leather just to make it look a little bit more like the rest of the, you know, the seats and the handbrake and that. But overall, I think it's yeah, I'm really happy with how that looks, and yeah, I think it's definitely going to make the car more presentable when it comes to roadworthiness inspections. But yeah, if this is the sort of project that you enjoy, please consider subscribing, drop a like, drop a comment, always appreciated. But yeah, I'll be doing more work on this, trying to get it on the road very soon, and I hope you'll join me for that. But yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.